Our story begins with a boy named Tetsuya, a neglected and mistreated child by his own mother. This was all because the magical aura he was born with was extremely weak. His mother had tried multiple times to end his life before he was even born, convinced that his weak magic would bring shame upon the family. But everything changed, my friend, on his 4th birthday. That day, his mother decided to initiate a massive and forbidden magical operation, an illegal ritual designed to transform him into the strongest child in the world. Its purpose was to enhance his magical potential, alter the very nature of his abilities, and push his power to its absolute limit. However, things during such rituals can spiral out of control. We saw Tetsuya, the protagonist of our tale, lying terrified in the operation room, pleading for them to release him, but no one paid him the slightest attention. Soon after, he found himself imprisoned, treated like a lab rat, like a servant chained to his own family. They used him as the family's personal bodyguard. And this is where his real story began. Eventually, he managed to develop his magical abilities. He gained control over the most powerful magic in the world. Magic so terrifying, he became capable of reviving the dead. Yet he kept all of this hidden from his family. His mother and relatives continued to treat him with cruelty and disdain, seeing him as a worthless, powerless child. On flights, they would place him in seats even lower than economy class, shameful, cramped, and without meals, while the rest of the family flew in luxury, enjoying the finest food and drink. We saw Tetsuya standing beside the luggage, waiting quietly as the others disembarked. That's when his sister, Miyuki, saw him. She was so arrogant that she couldn't bear to acknowledge any blood connection between them. Noticing this, their mother said to her, "Don't be bothered. Tetsuya is nothing more than a servant to us." Then one of the housemaids, Hanami, appeared, welcomed the family, and asked them to enter the mansion. As they walked, Miyuki remarked on how lovely the weather was, and asked her mother for permission to go on a stroll. Her mother agreed, but under one strange condition. Tetsuya had to accompany her. Miyuki was clearly displeased but obeyed nonetheless. As she wandered through the garden, she began to reflect. Though Tetsuya was her brother by blood, she had never truly seen him as one. In the middle of her thoughts, Tetsuya suddenly pulled her back, just in time to prevent her from bumping into 3 soldiers. These men started to harass Miyuki, trying to lay hands on her, but Tetsuya didn't remain silent. He calmly pulled her behind him and asked the men to leave without causing trouble. One of the soldiers took that as an insult and decided to teach him a lesson, launching a powerful punch toward Tetsuya, but the surprise was staggering. Tetsuya effortlessly blocked the punch, shocking everyone, including Miyuki. The soldier staggered backward and prepared to unleash a barrage of strikes, yet Tetsuya dodged and blocked them all, then landed a single blow that knocked the man out cold. The remaining soldiers panicked and fled immediately. Tetsuya gently took Miyuki's hand and smiled, and for the first time she felt her brother's true strength. Something shifted inside her. When they returned to the mansion, Miyuki eagerly told Hanami that her brother had saved her. But Tetsuya interrupted, stating plainly that he was only following orders. Their mother seemed pleased that Tetsuya understood his place as Miyuki's servant. That pained Miyuki deeply. The coldness with which her brother was treated, and the refusal to acknowledge him as family weighed on her heart. Later, Hanami came in to inform Miyuki that their mother was ill, and she would need to attend the royal banquet in her place. Miyuki agreed, insisting that Tetsuya accompany her. As the two rode in the car, Hanami watched from afar, saddened, hoping the siblings could grow close again one day. They arrived at the banquet where their uncle was waiting. As usual, Tetsuya was ignored while Miyuki was introduced to the guests. Her cousins approached and asked about Tetsuya. When they saw him, they ran to greet him warmly. Their father was furious, seeing his sons treat a disgraced outsider like Tetsuya with such familiarity while ignoring the family's rightful heir. But then something remarkable happened. Tetsuya smiled for the first time. This bothered Miyuki deeply. He had never smiled at her like that. Later, we learned that Tetsuya's family was the strongest magical clan in all of Japan. Yet they treated him like a worthless peasant because of his weak magic. From a young age, Miyuki had watched this mistreatment, and it had shaped how she herself treated him. Weeks passed. One day, Miyuki was on a boat taking pictures of the beautiful scenery. She asked her brother to take a picture with her. He refused at first until she made it an order. He agreed, and their mother permitted it as well. Just before the picture was taken, Miyuki smiled. Suddenly, the boat began moving erratically and at high speed. The captain appeared and informed them that a submarine was pursuing them and had launched 2 missiles. And here, Tetsuya's true power emerged once again. He raised his hand and effortlessly halted the missiles, disassembling and destroying them. Miyuki silently wondered how he could use magic without a CAD device. the very tool all magicians relied on to activate their powers. The scene shifted to a meeting between the naval commander and Tetsuya's mother. He apologized, saying his budget couldn't cover an investigation into the missile attack. She calmly reassured him not to worry. As they left together, they came across the same 3 soldiers who had harassed Miyuki. The commander recognized them, apologized to Tetsuya, and invited him to a private banquet at their base. Soon after, the family made plans for Miyuki's upcoming travel. Her mother asked Tetsuya to accept the commander's invitation and begin training during her absence. But Miyuki insisted on going with him, saying she wanted to observe his training and ensure he was a capable protector. After persistent pleading, their mother agreed. On one condition: Tetsuya must call Miyuki by her name, not her royal title, to prevent others from realizing how poorly he was treated. They walked for a long time before arriving at the soldiers' training base. The scene was strange. All the soldiers were training without any use of magic, enduring harsh physical drills. The commander offered Tetsuya a sparring match with one of his men. He accepted. The chosen opponent was a world boxing champion. The boxer tried to be polite, assuring Tetsuya he would go easy on him. But the moment the match began, the boxer charged, only for Tetsuya to dodge all his punches with incredible agility. With a single blow, he floored him instantly. Next came a soldier known for his lightning-fast kicks. But again, Tetsuya dodged every move and delivered a strike the opponent couldn't avoid. The soldier attempted his ultimate finishing move, but Tetsuya reversed it and defeated him with ease. Finally, the 3rd soldier stepped forward, the same one who had harassed Miyuki. She was afraid and pleaded with Tetsuya to stop, but he refused. The soldier enhanced his attack with magic and charged in. At the last second, Tetsuya evaded and used a special spell to knock him off balance. He struck once, and the fight was over. The soldier was stunned, then stood up and humbly acknowledged Tetsuya's victory. He introduced himself as a member of the National Air Force and told Tetsuya to call him anytime he felt bored. 3 days later, Tetsuya was at home calmly watching anime. Miyuki walked by and wondered why he preferred spending his time with anime rather than going out. Meanwhile, civil defense forces announced that their final warship had been destroyed and that the enemy was advancing. In the chaos that followed, Miyuki used her freezing magic to eliminate one of the attackers. Enraged by the death of his comrade, a soldier opened fire on her and the rest of the family. Walls collapsed and the attacker vanished. Tetsuya descended upon the remaining soldiers, annihilating them, then rushed to his sister's side. He placed his hand on her chest, activated his ultimate power, and begged her to wake up. Miyuki knew death was coming. She only wished she had apologized to her brother before it was too late. As her magic faded and she drew her last breath, a glowing magical circle enveloped her body. Her wounds began to heal. Something no one expected happened. She wondered, had her brother really awakened the strongest magic in existence? She opened her eyes and saw Tetsuya, and for the first time, he embraced her, and she embraced him back. When she stood up and looked at her mother's lifeless body, Tetsuya drew his pistol and pointed it toward her, then began healing her wounds, attempting to bring her back to life once more. At the same time, he started treating Honami's injuries. But Honami was in shock, for there was no magic in this world capable of reviving someone after 30 minutes of death. Moments later, the army commander apologized for the rebellion of his soldiers, but he added that a massive fleet of ships was approaching, and that 80% of their defensive forces had been utterly destroyed. Realizing the magnitude of the threat, Tetsuya requested the commander to evacuate his family to a safe place in exchange for an armored suit and military gear. When asked why he needed such equipment, Tetsuya replied, "Because they killed my sister, and I will reduce them all to ashes." The commander agreed, on one condition: that Tetsuya save those who had surrendered. But Tetsuya coldly answered, "They don't even deserve the right to surrender." He walked away. Miyuki ran after him, begging him not to go, not to risk his life for her. But Tetsuya responded firmly, "This is what I want. I swore to destroy anyone who harms my sister. I won't rest until I achieve that goal." He added that the only thing he considered precious in life was his little sister. When Miyuki asked what he meant by that, she realized he had revealed his secret unintentionally, but he continued, "It's time you finally learned the truth." Before leaving, he said, "The entire world means nothing to me, except my little sister. She is everything to me, and if I have to burn this entire planet to protect her, I will." As he walked away, the army's aircraft took off. When the enemy fleet landed, they began advancing toward the island. But as they opened fire on Tetsuya, he retaliated by unleashing his weapon, vaporizing their bullets and erasing them from existence with his healing abilities. Not only that, he also began reviving his fallen comrades. Seeing what he was doing, Miyuki pleaded with her mother to tell him the truth about her brother. Her mother agreed, but only if Miyuki stopped sympathizing with people who didn't deserve it. There is no good in the useless, and a loser holds no worth. But Miyuki insisted that Tatsuya had saved her life with his skills. Her mother replied, "That's the only thing he's actually good at." Then came the horrifying truth. Tatsuya was born with defective magic. Utterly useless. In this world, magical ability is defined as the capacity to modify and materialize objects through their data, but he can only destroy information and reassemble it without making any real changes. He wasn't born with any true magic at all. Even his regenerative abilities weren't considered actual magic. That's why Miyuki often wondered if his powers were a miracle. Her mother continued, explaining that no one retains their worth in this world unless they can use magic. And so, 7 years ago, a plan was executed to make him an artificial magician. He underwent a forbidden operation in which Miyuki's magical cloud region was implanted into his brain. But that procedure, which altered his mind, stripped him of every human drive. From intense anger to deep sorrow, hatred, sexual desire, and blind love. All that remained was a single motive: to use magic. For years, his magic had no value. He endured brutal training daily, only to become a useful guardian. In that moment, Miyuki understood that her mother, too, had lost her emotions during the same procedure. Her mother continued, "The only emotion Tatsuya never lost was his love for his sister. He dedicated his entire life to making hers better. Perhaps Tatsuya alone saw me as a real mother." After the truth was laid bare, Miyuki began questioning whether she could ever atone for how poorly she had treated him. Meanwhile, the remaining 6 ships were closing in on the island. Tatsuya was already prepared, having fixed his rifle atop a massive barrel inside the base. He asked Honami if she could move to help him, but she showed no interest. Tatsuya was finally about to unleash his second and ultimate ability. Before firing, he asked his comrades to evacuate before the enemy overwhelmed them. There wasn't enough time to find another firing point, but the soldiers were determined to stand with him until the very end. Tatsuya aimed the barrel downward and began firing just as the enemy missiles rained down upon them. The soldiers activated their magical barriers to shield against the explosions. At the same time, Tatsuya was retracing the path of his previously fired bullets, preparing for the final strike. At that critical moment, Honami arrived swiftly on her motorcycle, placing herself between the explosions and Tatsuya. The soldiers wondered how long she could hold out. Just before her energy ran out, Tatsuya completed his calculations and fired the final bullet, destroying the entire enemy fleet. Honami collapsed onto her knees, but a massive tsunami caused by the explosion was heading toward them. They barely escaped with their lives. However, Honami had reached the end of hers. She told him that her mission as an AI had always been to protect his family, and now, she had finally fulfilled that promise. When Tatsuya tried to extend her life, she refused. "I never once had the freedom to choose anything in my life," she said. "But this time, the only thing I can choose is where I die. That's why I can finally die as a human being, not as a tool created by humans." She begged him to let her fulfill this one final wish. Then she closed her eyes and never opened them again. 3 years after the Onna incident, Tatsuya decided to continue his education. He enrolled in the first high school of magic. There, he met a first-year student who introduced herself as Mayumi, the student council president, and offered to help him navigate the school. Tatsuya noticed her CAD device and realized she wasn't just a normal president. He introduced himself, but politely declined her offer. During the entrance ceremony, he observed that the blooms, the elite students, sat in the front, while the weeds, those deemed the weakest, were pushed to the back. Without hesitation, he knew where he belonged. Soon after, a small girl wearing glasses asked to sit beside him. She introduced herself as Mizuki, and her friend was Erika. But Tatsuya couldn't hide his surprise at Erika's disheveled look. She resembled a worn-out car with no worth. When the president's speech ended, Miyuki arrived to deliver hers. But to Tatsuya, her words were meaningless, and he couldn't bear to stay until the end. That night, when Miyuki tried to make him coffee, she realized no one at the school had ever seen him before. The thought provoked her, and she began freezing the kitchen in anger. But Tatsuya intervened just in time, calming her down, reminding her that no one had wanted him enrolled in the first place, so he never expected anything from them. The next morning, they ran toward the training grounds. Upon arrival, a man tried to ambush Tatsuya, but he countered, sending him flying, and kicked another attacker while mid-air, responding perfectly to their strikes. At that moment, their instructor appeared before Miyuki, sneering, "Why the gloomy face in my sword dojo?" Then, with a twisted grin, he added, "Let me show you how a sword is truly used." He invited her to attack him, but Tatsuya stepped in, declaring, "Stop being so filthy and disgusting." The instructor vowed to teach him a lesson. When the fight began, Tatsuya noticed an invisible barrier, but the instructor struck first, landing a barrage of punches and kicking him away. Still, Tatsuya landed gracefully, enough to astonish the instructor. Soon after, the skilled fighters began attacking the instructor simultaneously, and once the restrictions on them were lifted, Tatsuya was left exhausted and collapsed. Miyuki tried to help, but noticed her dress had gotten dirty. She quickly activated a magical technique that restored it to perfect cleanliness and form. The next day at school, Mizuki and Erika noticed how fast Tatsuya was on the computer. He told them he was recording the lectures. This impressed a new student named Ryo, who introduced himself and explained that his scientific magic specialized in convergent system reinforcement. When Ryo asked Tatsuya about his own scientific magic skill, Tatsuya simply replied, "I have none, but I intend to become a magic engineer." After the bell rang, the teacher entered the classroom. However, Tatsuya was puzzled by the appearance of the new instructor. She looked more like a nun than a teacher. Later in the cafeteria, Miyuki asked to join them at the table, but a group of arrogant students blocked her way. Their leader, Shun, suggested they have lunch together, but soon insulted the other students, calling them worthless weeds with no place here. His words enraged Ryo, who tried to challenge him, but Tatsuya decided to leave the table before things escalated further. That evening, as they were heading home, the same group reappeared, demanding to take Miyuki with them. Shun declared that the others were of no value and didn't even deserve acknowledgement. Mizuki stood up to him, saying that those who can only see beauty and strength have failed to understand its true meaning. Shun challenged Ryo to a duel and tried to fire a magic gun, but Erika stepped in and knocked him aside, stating that he was a coward more concerned with his reputation than a real fight. Another member of the group attempted to use his power, but suddenly a girl appeared and activated her dark magic, striking everyone down in an instant. At that moment, Mayumi arrived and stated that attacking others with magic was a crime. Then Mari, the head of the disciplinary committee, appeared and ordered everyone to follow her so they could be punished for violating school regulations. Tetsuya tried to explain that he had requested the Blooms to reveal their powers and hadn't expected things to spiral out of control. Mari was skeptical but had no evidence to disprove his claim. Miyuki said it was all just a misunderstanding and apologized to ease the tension. Mayumi too decided to let it go, warning them not to use magic without supervision again, as it violated school policy. Mari agreed to close the matter but promised to keep a close eye on Tetsuya. As they left, Shun told Tetsuya he would never acknowledge him, even if he saved his life repeatedly, because he believed he was more deserving of Miyuki's company. After returning home, 2 students from the Blooms approached them and apologized for the trouble they had caused. Hanoka, the girl who had used dark magic, was grateful to Tetsuya for covering for them and preventing their expulsion. They asked to walk with the weeds to the station. The rest were surprised by this gesture, wondering if Hanoka was truly one of the highborn Blooms. Later, as they walked down the street, Hanoka asked Miyuki how she calibrated her CAD. Miyuki replied that Tetsuya was an expert in CADs and could fine-tune them with precision. Erika, believing Tetsuya to be a real man, asked if he could examine her device, but he found it more useless than her face and told her to stop playing the victim. The next day, Mayumi asked Tetsuya and Miyuki to speak with her during lunch. Upon arriving at the student council, Mayumi explained that every year, a new student is offered a seat on the council, and she offered it to Miyuki. However, Miyuki nominated Tetsuya instead, praising his superior performance in the exams and insisting he was a genius compared to her. She suggested that they both join the council. At that moment, Mari mentioned that a seat in the disciplinary committee was still vacant and said Tetsuya would be a suitable candidate. Mayumi immediately seconded the nomination. The bell rang, and Mari proposed that they meet later in the magic training room. Erika began by activating the system and aimed the device at a speed she considered ideal. When it was Tetsuya's turn, he felt the pace was too slow, which discouraged him and made him question his performance. Upon arriving at his office that day, he began considering rejecting the position, feeling unworthy of it. Just then, he encountered the ugly-looking vice president of the student council. Tetsuya was irritated but passed by him, greeting Miyuki politely. despite thinking the man's face was worse than a cabbage. Mari told Tetsuya they needed to head straight to the disciplinary committee's headquarters so he could learn his responsibilities. On the way, Jallo remarked that Tetsuya had no place there, claiming weeds couldn't hold such positions. Miyuki defended her brother, stating that he had the highest combat score and could outperform anyone. She tried to explain further, but Tetsuya silenced her and then challenged Jallo to a simulated battle. Everyone was shocked, convinced that Jallo would defeat him easily. Jallo, full of confidence, believed he would win using his CAD, which could activate magic at double speed, and by casting a powerful movement spell to slam Tetsuya into a wall. Mari ordered the match to begin. In a flash, Tetsuya took Jallo down in a single move, stunning everyone. They questioned how he had appeared in front of Jallo so suddenly. Mari declared Tetsuya the victor, and some speculated he might be a ghost. Mari asked if he had used a self-acceleration spell, but he explained that it wasn't magic at all. It was a physical movement. Miyuki mentioned that he had trained under Master Ninjutsu, prompting Mayumi to ask whether he had used one of their techniques. Tetsuya explained that it was a simple vibration spell utilizing psion waves. While it sounded strange, he clarified that psion waves alone weren't enough to knock someone out, unless concentrated properly. Mayumi asked how he had managed that. Suzuan answered, explaining that Tetsuya had emitted 3 psion waves at different frequencies and directed them at Jallo, causing them to resonate together and induce intense motion sickness. Everyone was stunned by his skill and asked how someone with such ability had received a low evaluation. Tetsuya replied that the school's grading system was terrible and that many of his capabilities weren't even included in the awakening test. Jallo admitted he had failed the practical exam and was only rated based on his casting speed. He apologized to Miyuki for misunderstanding her, but was too embarrassed to apologize to Tetsuya and walked away instead of reconciling. That night, Miyuki asked Tetsuya to upgrade her CAD for more advanced missions. He agreed and quickly examined the device. But instead of going to bed like a normal person, she began role-playing as a mischievous devil, asking if he wanted to plot with her. She even asked whether he would bring Mayumi over to spend the night. Tetsuya thought she might have been drinking something strange. Suddenly, she clutched her CAD and declared she preferred to keep it to herself so they could carry out their evil plan. She cast a spell on him that knocked him unconscious. When he regained consciousness, his magic sequence had already begun loading. As he awoke, Miyuki greeted him with, "Good morning." That day, Mari officially introduced Tetsuya to the new members of the disciplinary committee, asking them to begin their patrols while warning them not to abuse their new privileges. Tetsuya began his rounds and came across a group of students trying to force Erika into joining their club. He intervened using his CAD, took down the attackers and quickly escorted her away. Erika admitted she didn't like being alone, so they headed together to the kendo club. There, they noticed 2 teams arguing over the training space. A boy, an arrogant pig, challenged a girl named Meow, who had placed second in the kendo championship. He claimed he wouldn't use magic, but she called him a lying loser, saying he couldn't beat her without cheating. Tetsuya was recording the entire incident, understanding how serious it could become. The boy attacked, but Meow overpowered him, stating that if this were a real battle, she would have pierced his heart. Enraged, the boy activated his magic, triggering a vibration weapon. Tetsuya realized he was about to do something dangerous. At the last second, he saved Meow and cooled the enemy's weapon using psion waves, then took him down. When one student tried to detain him, the boy escaped, causing 2 others to collide. When other members tried to attack, Miyuki wanted to assist, but her commander stopped her. Meanwhile, Tetsuya was moving among the unworthy students like a spinning arrow, leaving the captain visibly impressed. The next day, Tetsuya was informed of a fight in the gym and rushed over. While sprinting between trees, a mysterious hand tried to cast a spell on him. He predicted the incantation and destroyed it with sonic waves. Though the attacker fled, Tetsuya noticed a bracelet on his wrist before he vanished. In the following class, Yu told Tetsuya that he had become famous after defeating the ugly thugs from the kendo club and was now seen as a local hero. Tetsuya noticed Miyuki spying on him from the door. As they were about to head out for lunch, they ran into Meow, the girl he saved. She asked to have lunch with him, but Tetsuya declined, telling her to mind her own business. However, she insisted she would wait. Miyuki, clearly jealous, asked if he planned to see that girl. She expressed her happiness over his popularity, but confessed she was worried his true power might soon be exposed. Tetsuya reassured her that he would be fine, and that he would continue to keep his true strength hidden from everyone. Later, Tetsuya was summoned to the counseling room, but he was puzzled by the counselor's attire. It made her look like a retired woman. She told him he had been called in for a psychological test to determine whether or not he was a pervert. She asked him a few questions, and when she was done she asked if Miao was his new girlfriend. But he replied bluntly, telling her to stop nagging and to keep her ugly nose out of his life, dismissing everything she said as mere rumors. That same day at school, Miao told the captain she was tired of the bullying she faced because of her inability to use magic. She was determined to change her school activity. The captain believed that Tetsuya was their only hope for advancement and told her she needed to win him over to their club. That night at home, Tetsuya revealed to Miyuki an anti-magic device, and the group began to sneak into the school. He had a feeling that something wasn't right, especially as they headed toward the gymnasium. A few days earlier, a student had been attacked, and Tetsuya was certain the assailant had been wearing a bracelet from the organization. Miyuki asked if the anti-magic group intended to destroy the city. Despite their low odds, Tetsuya said it was possible, but she explained that her family was investigating the matter, and she feared they would be forced to return home if the family stepped in. Tetsuya reassured her that he would deal with the secret organization before things spiraled out of control. A few days later, Tetsuya was preparing for a new test. When the system activated, it began measuring his magical output. He found it exceeded 900 milli per second, which left him feeling hopeless about improving his practical skills. That afternoon in the cafeteria, Miao approached him and said she wanted to demand better treatment for Course 1 students if he agreed to join their club. But Tetsuya wasn't convinced, asking her to clarify what exactly she wanted to change. He told her that Nebo had tried to reform the school entirely, but she seemed confused and unsure of what truly mattered. He told her his only wish was to graduate and live a simple life. Later that day, Miao's secret group announced a new system, declaring they would fight for equality at school. They demanded to negotiate with the student council and threatened to destroy the school if their demands were not met. When Tetsuya and Miyuki reached the room, they found it fortified. Tetsuya immediately called Miao and informed her the disciplinary committee was ready to negotiate. He promised they wouldn't arrest anyone, but swiftly the students were captured, leaving Miao stunned by Tetsuya's betrayal. Mayumi then arrived and ordered the release of the students. She stated that Miao couldn't set negotiation terms on her own and needed the support of others. In the end, she emphasized that they were all still students and said the student council would take control of the situation. She proposed they begin negotiations right away. That day at school, Tetsuya noticed the captain trying to convince Mizuki to join his club. He realized it was the same person who had attacked him days earlier. When Mizuki walked away, Tetsuya recognized him as the head of the kendo club affiliated with Miao, and noted that he possessed the same sensory skill as she did. That night, the instructor informed Tetsuya and Miyuki that the captain was a member of the anti-magic group that constantly attacked the city. He added that his brother had been the leader of another infamous anti-magic faction in Japan, and warned that they intended harm, perhaps even the city's destruction. On the day of the debate, mysterious men left a car outside the school and fled before anyone saw them. Inside the hall, the representative of the kendo club began accusing the school system of being biased toward magic users. But Mayumi saw the boy as delusional, and explained that the committee had no authority to change everything in the school. She promised to amend the rule preventing Course 2 students from joining the student council. When she said that, the students began to applaud. It was an inspiring speech, but the kendo club realized then that their only chance of success had slipped away. Suddenly, explosions shook the hall. Members of the magical faction tried to flee, but the committee caught them just in time. Then, tear gas was released in the hall, followed by smoke, but Galo managed to seal it with a spell and threw it outside. Moments later, 3 men entered the hall, only to begin suffocating as Mari compressed every breath in their lungs until they gave up. More men arrived and began destroying the school. Tetsuya offered to secure the building, and everyone began thinking death might be better than losing everything. Mari ordered everyone to evacuate immediately. Meanwhile, Leo was fighting the enemies. When one of them tried to trigger a magical explosion, Miyuki halted the spell under their feet, then launched them into the air and slammed them to the ground. Leo admired her performance, and Erika felt they now had the upper hand. When Tetsuya asked about the rest of the team, the disguised advisor appeared and said the real goal of the attackers was the library. The auditorium was just a distraction. He explained that Miao had been cooperating with those men, but she clarified that her actions were the result of being manipulated. They had tricked her, and she had been trying to conquer her inner demons. Once they realized someone had escaped toward the library, they all rushed after them. At that moment, the attackers were assaulting students, but Leo launched a spell and flung one of them far away. Miyuki was impressed by his skill, and Tetsuya told her that Leo had used a self-enhancement spell. He then asked Ryo to head to the library. At that moment, Tetsuya activated a new ability and scanned the entire building, pinpointing the attackers' locations with precision. Ichika dashed forward and drew her weapon. Two men appeared before her. She struck one and knocked down the other. When a third man appeared and tried to block her, she declared she would fight him alone. Then, Miyuki lifted Tetsuya into the air with her spell, allowing him to fly over the wall. He activated the device and entered a private room connected to Miao. Miao hesitated, wondering if she was doing the right thing, as she watched the mysterious men trying to steal the school's magical data. But before they could copy anything, the door opened, and Tetsuya destroyed their equipment with a single signal. When one of them tried to fire his weapon, Miyuki froze his arm instantly. Tetsuya told Miao that true equality doesn't exist in this world, and she had simply allowed herself to be fooled and make poor choices. But Miao insisted her intentions were pure, and wondered why Tetsuya hadn't become angry at the world like she had. Miyuki told her that Tetsuya was far more intelligent than she was, and that he always deserved respect, not just asked for it. Miao felt sorry for herself, thinking she was weak, pitiful, and useless. Tetsuya told her she had always seen herself as inferior, and feared taking responsibility for her own actions. Still in shock, one of the men yelled at her, which activated her ring and disrupted Miyuki's magic, but Tetsuya easily took them all down. The pig tried to escape, and Miyuki intended to finish her off, but Tetsuya asked her to let her go, saying Ichika was waiting outside to end it herself. When Miao encountered red-haired Ichika, she introduced herself and said she'd seen her in the kendo tournament. She expressed disappointment that Miao had become a failure and a disgrace to her family. Miao tried to flee and reached for a weapon, but Ichika promised to teach her a lesson and asked her to change weapons if she wanted a real challenge. Miao chose the sword and claimed she would defeat her and end her. But Ichika replied, "Even in your dreams, you'll never do that." In a single move, Ichika knocked her to the ground and broke her bone. She told her that Mari had once been a trainee in their dojo, and despite her role in the disciplinary committee, she was still learning. Then she arrested Miao after she lost consciousness. Later, a committee member appeared before the captain and asked where he was hiding. The captain tried to escape, but another student appeared and disrupted his breathing, sucking the air from his lungs. In the hospital, Miao began explaining everything that had happened with the captain. She said he had tricked her into joining the anti-magic group after realizing she had failed. Mari told her she wasn't a failure, only a victim. Tetsuya said he was proud of her progress, that she had become stronger, even without anyone's recognition. His kind words moved her, and she began to cry like a child. Finally, Tetsuya declared his intention to take down every member of the anti-magic group. He asked Miyuki, Ichika, and Ryo to join him, and offered to act as their backup. Then he opened the door to find the counselor waiting for him, having listened to that conversation. It didn't take long before they discovered the location of the secret group. Kudo offered to accompany them, being a member of one of the 10 master clans, believing himself ready for any threat. A few hours later, they began heading toward the group's hideout, and Tetsuya stressed that it was essential to capture the leader. Upon arrival, Ryo cast a protective spell around the vehicle as they rammed through the gate. Inside, Tetsuya scanned the building and noticed a large number of people waiting for them, but he was fully prepared. When they entered the storage room, the sunlight reflected into Tetsuya's eyes, revealing a grotesque man standing before them. The man immediately introduced himself as the leader of the anti-magic organization. Tetsuya aimed his weapon at him and ordered him to surrender, but the man thought he was joking and let out a hideous laugh. His name was Hajime, and he wanted to expand his army. He asked Tetsuya to join them, but Tetsuya wasn't convinced and told him he knew he had tried to recruit Miao into their group. Hajime then tried a different approach. He looked up at the ceiling to distract them and activated a mind control spell. But Tetsuya was aware of what he was doing. Hajime was shocked and wondered how Tetsuya wasn't affected. Tetsuya told him he had noticed his movements from the start and realized the glasses were just a trick. When Hajime saw that all his tactics had failed, he ordered his men to open fire, but their rifles shattered instantly. Hajime was stunned and tried to escape, but Tetsuya chased after him. One of the men attempted to stab Tetsuya with a knife, but Miyuki froze him, turning him into a pillar of ice. After Tetsuya and Miyuki entered the room, Miyuki, enraged, activated her freezing system and began turning them all into blocks of ice. At the same time, Kudo was defending the area, striking down the rest of the men furiously. Later, Tetsuya conducted another scan and detected a second group of enemies. When they fired their weapons, their guns also shattered. Hajime was stunned that Tetsuya could still use his weapon. Kudo realized that Tetsuya had taken them all down alone. Tetsuya confirmed that Hajime was indeed the leader. Furious upon learning that Hajime had nearly destroyed Miao's life, Kudo cast a spell to put him to sleep as punishment. That night, while the forces were transporting the injured, Miyuki noticed that the frozen men had begun to thaw. A few weeks later, Tetsuya returned to the hospital with Miyuki and Erika, all happy that Miao was finally being discharged. At that moment, her father asked to speak to Tetsuya in private. He thanked him for saving his daughter, said she had regained her mental health after hearing his kind words, and acknowledged that Tetsuya had saved her from herself. He added that Tetsuya would make a good husband for her. When they returned to the others, Erika asked Miao whether she preferred going home and said that Tetsuya would be a good choice. Erika then began to confess her feelings, and Miao said that she had loved Tetsuya from the beginning because he was strong and self-reliant. She also said that Kai had only ever been a friend. That night, Miyuki asked Tetsuya why he had chosen to attend high school when his powers far exceeded any ordinary student. He told her he enjoyed being a student and loved sharing these moments with her. During training, Miyuki soared into the sky and began destroying fireballs. At that moment, Tetsuya noticed someone among the trees. Their coach recognized the person, and the former instructor appeared. Tetsuya wasn't pleased with her presence and asked why she was sneaking around like a ninja. She explained that the counselor had originally been a covert agent for the Public Security Bureau and had been assigned to the school under the cover of a secret mission. She asked them to keep this information confidential, as her identity would be in danger if exposed. A few days later, Tetsuya and his friends won a soccer match at school and recalled that a quiet man had helped them secure the victory. After the match, Ryo and Tetsuya approached him and said, "With your skills, you might be the next Messi." But Maiko thought they were exaggerating and said he wasn't even sure if he'd make it to the youth academy, though he was happy to have made new friends. Later that afternoon, Mayumi announced to the school members that they would be participating in the 9 schools competition in the coming weeks. She explained that it was a prestigious event held once every 10 years and would greatly boost the school's reputation. She also announced an afternoon meeting where the council nominated Tetsuya for a position on the technical team. Kudo suggested that Tetsuya demonstrate his true abilities by tuning his CAD device to prove he could handle the risks. At the same time, Kai suggested using test subjects, while Tetsuya began transferring data to another device. After completing the transfer, everyone was shocked by how quickly he typed on the keyboard. He had finished everything in just a few seconds. Kudo asked Tetsuya if he was tired from using the new CAD, but he replied that he was fine. Suzu said that Tetsuya was a rare talent, and that removing him from the team would be a huge mistake. In the end, Kudo agreed to let him join. That night, the commander of the secret division ordered Tetsuya to proceed with the performance test the next day, but warned him of a secret group detected in the competition area. That same night, when Miyuki showed off her competition outfit, Tetsuya told her she looked beautiful, and she confidently believed she would win. The next day, Tetsuya asked Miyuki to participate in testing the new flight device, and she instantly accepted without hesitation. She activated the device and began flying, telling him she felt no dizziness and was completely comfortable. Tetsuya asked her to fly around the entire room, and she was thrilled. After a few days, Tetsuya and Miyuki visited the development center, where he demonstrated the flight device to a renowned researcher named Ushama. After the trial, the researcher was amazed by Tetsuya's genius. As they left the facility, their family's head butler ignored Tetsuya and said he was just a bodyguard and didn't deserve respect. Miyuki was upset and tried to defend her brother, but the butler responded that Tetsuya held no value in the family. Shocked, Miyuki was about to freeze his face, but Tetsuya stopped her in time and walked away with her. That same day, during the ceremony, Miyuki gave Tetsuya a pin to attach to his suit jacket, and the audience erupted into applause. After the event, Tetsuya introduced himself to the students and explained that he was the one operating the school's new CAD system. However, some girls wondered if he could work deeply within the CAD system simultaneously. That same day, Mizuki sensed the presence of spirits inside the building and decided to investigate. She entered a classroom and found Maiko attempting to summon many spirits, which began floating around her. At that moment, Tetsuya appeared and saved her. Apologizing to Maiko for interrupting her spell, he explained that the spirits were about to devour Mizuki if he hadn't intervened. When asked why Maiko was practicing this kind of magic, she replied that she was learning how to summon beasts. Tetsuya was intrigued by this and asked Mizuki what kind of spirits she had seen. She said they were blue, light, and strange. But very frightening. Maiko had always admired Tetsuya and believed he would acquire the same abilities if she disappeared. But Tetsuya asked for a room, and Mizuki apologized for intruding. Maiko told Tetsuya that he had always wished to have crystal eyes like hers and that he had been captivated by her beauty. Tetsuya then thought about his tiny energy charge and decided to let the color absorb. The next day, the students were getting ready to leave for the competition. Mayumi arrived late and apologized to Tetsuya, but he didn't care much and told her she'd be flying during the ceremony. She wondered if he would sit beside her, but he said her face was so ugly it would give him nightmares. As the buses drove off, Miyuki felt sad not to be next to her brother and started wondering why they had been separated. During the trip, the driver lost control of the bus, and it flew toward the opposite lane, while Van Kun, thirsty for blood, looked for the largest number of victims possible. But the driver slammed on the brakes and stopped the bus just in time. Even though Van Kun had already started sliding toward it, the students were ready to use their magic. But Mari ordered them to stop the attack, as their overlapping spells would have cancelled each other out. At that moment, Miyuki attempted to extinguish the flames surrounding them, then cast a spell that instantly destroyed the shields and put out the fires. Kudo then threw his shield and safely collided with the car, surprising everyone who witnessed the scene. When they arrived at the destination, Tatsuya told Miyuki that he had sensed magical energy at the scene of the accident and believed the driver was responsible for what had happened. Upon entering the building, they coincidentally encountered Erika, but Tatsuya thought her face looked terrifying, so he ignored her and walked away. Later that evening, while they were having dinner, Erika appeared in front of Tatsuya, but he commented that her clothes looked better than her face. After that, a man welcomed the students and decided to introduce them to the head of the Magic Association. The lights in the hall dimmed, and a woman appeared under a spotlight. Tatsuya sensed a perceptual interference from magic and wondered if the director had cast a wide-range spell. However, the woman left immediately, and a man with no eyes appeared, saying that the woman was a test, and only 5 people managed to perceive it, while the rest had failed and would die if they tried to resist them outside the hotel that night. Maiko tried to use his summoning magic but sensed the presence of mysterious men and thought they were thieves. When he cast spirits towards them, another spell intercepted them, and he realized they weren't ordinary thieves. He ran back toward the hotel but felt extremely weak, having lost most of his powers in a previous incident. At that moment, Tatsuya recalled how he once defeated high-ranking men without using magic and decided to chase after them. When he discovered that the men were casting light-based spells and their guns were shattered by a powerful lightning strike, he was thrilled to see an upside-down face in the hotel. Upon noticing how long it was taking Maiko's spell to activate, he decided to support him. Tatsuya destroyed the men's weapons himself and engaged in a fierce battle with them. After the battle ended, the officer spoke to him about Maiko, saying that the struggle he had faced was similar to what Tatsuya had gone through. He had been dealing with accepting himself. But Tatsuya responded that he wasn't running a daycare and that Maiko could deal with his own issues. The next day, the competition began. Tatsuya knew that Mari was confident she would win, but Erika believed she was merely showing off. While one of the girls flew around causing chaos, Mari remained unfazed. She activated her spell and surfed across the waves with incredible speed. She told Tatsuya she had activated enhanced magic and was controlling multiple techniques at once, which helped her maintain her balance and prove her skill on the board. Later on, Tatsuya attended a private meeting where the officer told him that the mysterious men they had encountered were part of a secret organization called the Dragon Group and that they were planning to start a war. He expressed hope that the truth would be uncovered soon. The following day, Tatsuya arrived at the arena for the quarterfinals and saw Mayumi step onto the stage to face her opponent. As the green light signaled the start, they began firing shots, but Mayumi was 3 times faster and scored a perfect 100 points, securing victory. When Mayumi asked Tatsuya if he could assist her, he told her he was busy and had a lot of people to work with. That evening, Erika visited Tatsuya at the hotel and asked if she could try out his inventions. He told her her appearance wasn't suitable, and instead handed the box to Leo to test it. Leo decided to try the weapon, activated a spell that split the sword and brought it down through the air before retrieving it again. He was impressed by the sword and said it needed enhanced magic to extend its power. Tatsuya explained that the sword's strength would increase in length and that there was an invisible medium keeping it connected. The next day, a new event began. Mari launched into the water and noticed her closest competitor approaching rapidly. As the competitor lost control, she slipped off her board and flew toward Mari. Mari tried to avoid her, but the board collided with her and she was thrown out of the water. That night, Mari woke up in the hospital, and Mayumi told her that she had fractured a rib during the fall and had been restrained by a spell. Mari said her board suddenly dropped right before the incident, and Mayumi thought it was unusual. Tatsuya said that someone from outside had attacked Mari using magic and wondered how to uncover the culprit, noting that the large number of mages in the competition made it difficult to bypass security procedures. That same night, Mayumi informed the committee that only 2 main competitions remained, and that the only way to win was to triumph in both. She stressed that poor performance in those 2 events would cost them first place, especially since one of them awarded more points than the other. They decided to abandon the smaller events and focus on the major ones to improve their chances of victory. Mayumi told Miyuki that all their hopes rested on her in the final event, and Tatsuya believed she had a real chance. He told her she would succeed. The following day, Shizuki entered her special event and began shooting at targets, ultimately scoring a perfect 100 points. After the match, Suzune told Mayumi that the boys had lost again, reinforcing their reputation as losers. Suzune then started blasting all the targets rapidly, achieving another perfect score, and her friends celebrated her victory. Mayumi thanked Tatsuya for his help, but he asked her to thank the students instead. The next day, before the competition began, Tatsuya met Hanoka in the arena. She told him she was there to help him. Hanoka began preparing and said she had found a trick to help him win. Since the participants weren't allowed to use magic against each other, they all wore sunshades. When the race began, Hanoka activated her spell and projected a bright light onto the riders' faces, causing them to lose their balance. She seized the opportunity, dashed forward, and reached the finish line. She then thanked Tatsuya for his support and began to cry, saying it was the first time in her life she had truly felt successful. That night at the hotel, Miyuki found out that the boys had lost again. If their performance continued this way, they would be held responsible for the team's failure in Chinatown. Meanwhile, a mysterious group of men began discussing how to manipulate the competition results. Afraid of going bankrupt, they considered deceiving the public, but their leader suggested destroying the rival team before anything could happen. At the hotel, Miyuki found Tatsuya in his room and asked him why he refused to register his name in the directory. He replied that the university might uncover his true identity and learn his family name, and even if he were the strongest in solo combat, he wouldn't be able to impose his authority on his family. He added that if he eliminated his aunt, the current head of the family, someone even worse might take her place, leaving them with no choice but to submit. Miyuki promised that she would always stand by his side and support him. The next day, Shizuki entered the second round of her competition. As the blue light signaled the start, her opponent activated a shield to protect his pillars, but Shizuki's magic destroyed most of them. He tried to destroy hers, but she cast protective spells and obliterated the rest of his pillars, winning the match. On the same day, while Tatsuya was working on Hanoka's CAD, she began to develop feelings for him. She remembered the first time she saw him during the entrance exam. At first, she thought it was Miyuki she saw casting her magic, and assumed Miyuki was a truly exceptional talent. She wondered if she would ever reach her level. However, it turned out that Tatsuya had been the one controlling the body at a lower speed, which made the magic appear smooth and elegant. Later, Mayumi arrived with the committee, stating they had come to support Miyuki and asking for everyone's cooperation. Shortly after, Miyuki appeared in the arena, and the competition began with the blue light. Her opponent tried to cast a spell to protect her pillars, but Miyuki had already activated a spell on her rival's pillars, managing to destroy most of them. The girl tried to increase her magical output, but Miyuki's magic was far stronger. In the end, she launched a rapid ice attack on her side. That evening, the students celebrated their victory and wondered how Tatsuya had enhanced Miyuki's abilities and helped her dominate the tournament. They saw him as incredibly powerful and wished he would support them as well. However, one girl felt jealous and questioned why no one else got a chance to test their skills alongside Tatsuya. Shun, feeling his position threatened, grew upset and decided to leave the hall. On his way out, he told his friends that they must win the next competition, even if it meant cheating. To him, it was the only way to prove they were better than Tatsuya. When the next event began, Erika noticed that all participants were wearing sun visors to protect against a spell that could cause blindness. As the race started, one of the competitors slowed down at a curve, allowing Hanoka to seize the lead. At the next turn, Hanoka increased her speed. Meanwhile, Mihawk noticed that the other contestants were wearing dark glasses, causing them to halt at every bend. Hanoka, however, wore regular goggles and moved swiftly. The strategy had been planned by Tatsuya. When she crossed the finish line, everyone recognized his brilliance. After the race, Mayumi thanked the girls for their performance, saying they dominated the pillar break event and had reached the finals. Shizuku declared she was ready to challenge one of her teammates for first place, and Miyuki accepted the challenge. The next day, they took their positions on either side of the arena, and the match began. Miyuki unleashed a Hellfire spell, but Shizuku responded with a spell to protect her pillars. She then decided to adopt a different strategy to secure victory. Tatsuya, feeling excited, selected Maiko and Leo to join his team. As the match started, Tatsuya cast a spell ahead of the enemy that weakened him, leaving him open to a swift attack. Mari remembered it was the same spell Tatsuya had used to stop the truck from crashing into their bus on the highway. She wondered if Tatsuya had been their savior that day. Elsewhere, Tatsuya successfully opened the enemy's block and quickly escaped, bypassing the alarm. Meanwhile, the enemy reached Leo, who attempted to shoot him from the ground. Deep in the forest, Maiko unleashed powerful waves on one of the men, causing him to vanish entirely. Tatsuya sprinted between the trees, activated his spell, and leapt from tree to tree. When the final enemy arrived at the battle site, Tatsuya cast a weakening spell on him, securing victory in the match. His teammates were deeply impressed by his skill. In the following match, Maiko activated a stealth spell and located the enemy's block. Tatsuya rushed in and fired at the stone beneath it, narrowly escaping the enemy's attacks. When Leo managed to defend his side, he slashed his opponent with his blade, but the bell rang, signaling a second round. During the second match, large boulders were hurled at Masaki, but he caught and destroyed them with a spell. The opposing team was crumbling. They launched stones, but the overlapping barrier dispelled them. The enemy tried to secure a quick win, but Masaki counterattacked with a powerful spell. Despite this, the opponent didn't give up and activated a new spell that rained down a storm of attacks. Masaki destroyed everything and blew them away. Tatsuya was confident that Masaki and Shinonki would reach the finals, knowing it was a great chance for them to win. Maiko wondered if they really stood a chance, but Tatsuya advised him to focus on their upcoming opponents. When the mountain match began, Tatsuya lured an enemy toward the water, sprinted through the forest, and fired at their stones. Maiko entered the code into his CAD software and won the match. That evening, Tatsuya met with the intelligence advisor and asked her to reveal the location of the gang that had tried to attack the hotel the previous night. Shocked, she asked how he knew their secret name. He told her it wasn't her concern and stated his intention to eliminate them all before they attacked his team again. As she gazed at him like he was her beloved, he told her to take her ugly face out of his sight. Meanwhile, Masaki and Shinonki were thrilled that the final would take place in an open field. Masaki asked if they'd finally face Tatsuya head-on, as they had always dreamed. Shinonki replied that there was no other choice. Inside the tent, Tatsuya handed Leo a magical cloak, explaining it had protective circles that would help him cast spells and defend against Shinonki's bullets. He assured him it was perfectly legal. The next day, during preparations, Tatsuya began to wonder whether his team could truly win and whether he had a real chance to face Masaki and Shino. Miyuki appeared and confidently told him he would never lose to anyone, warning that if he did, she would gouge out his eye. Mizuki noticed spirits hovering around Maiko and believed his powers were starting to return. As the crowd filled the stadium, the alarm signaled the beginning of the match. Masaki launched his spell, but Tatsuya destroyed it instantly. Masaki kept casting more spells, and Tatsuya shattered them all without hesitation. His bullets bounced off Masaki's barrier, but the two continued exchanging relentless fire, their ammunition seemingly endless. They decided to stick to their strategy and ordered the backups to secure the monolith. Tatsuya charged at Masaki with a barrage of attacks. They barely dodged the invisible bullets, and upon spotting a hole in the ground, they activated their mysterious eyes. As Tatsuya sensed Masaki's spells surrounding him, he countered them without backing down. At that moment, Shinonki lunged at Tatsuya, but Leo intercepted him. When Shinonki tried to cast a spell, Leo raised his arm and attempted to strike, but Shinonki dodged, knowing his invisible bullets wouldn't pierce the cloak. Shinonki cast a defensive spell against an explosion. As he prepared a new one, Maiko appeared in front of him using genjutsu. When Shinonki tried to hit him, an explosion blew up in his face. Shinonki realized Masaki had fired an invisible bullet at him, so he used a spell to pin Maiko to the ground. Tatsuya began attacking, but Masaki intensified his spell, breaking the rules of the match to increase his offense. Believing he wouldn't survive, Tatsuya fired at them one by one. While reloading in mid-air, he rolled across the field, and invisible bullets exploded around him. The students were stunned as they saw Tatsuya fall. Masaki realized Tatsuya had been seriously injured. The system indicated he had a fractured rib and liver damage, with his combat ability dropping below normal, but announced that self-recovery had begun. In that instant, he dropped next to Masaki, who was still in shock. Tatsuya snapped his fingers, and the sound echoed across the arena, rupturing Masaki's eardrum and knocking him unconscious. Tatsuya had been injured as well, and decided to rest until he recovered in the open field. Meanwhile, Shinonki was stunned by Masaki's defeat. When alerted to a nearby attack, he narrowly dodged a lightning strike. Maiko was thrilled to see him, and after carrying Masaki off, he resolved to endure the pain and defeat Shinonki immediately. He unleashed his clone through Genjutsu and activated a powerful spell that caused giant rocks to rise from the ground. Shinonki tried to escape but caught fire in the process. Though he freed himself, a lightning bolt struck him from above, knocking him down. Maiko believed they had won, but Shinonki reappeared and launched a massive explosion that almost killed him. Fortunately, a barrier shielded him from the blast. When he opened his eyes, he saw Shinonki lying on the ground, finally securing victory. Inside the tent, the committee was ecstatic over their triumph, and Mayumi was deeply impressed by Tatsuya's exceptional skills. In the arena, the students began cheering for the winning team, and Miyuki was the happiest of them all. At the same time, during another meeting, the mysterious men learned that their team had little chance of winning. They thought the best solution was to destroy the competition entirely. One of them suggested eliminating Tetsuya and his friends. At the camp, before the competition started, Miyuki began to wonder if they would be attacked again. However, Tetsuya reassured her that he would always protect her. In the morning, as the competition began, the girls activated their spells and soared into the sky to highlight the game. Miyuki's teammate tried to activate her heart spell but failed, and Miyuki noticed a clear mistake. Suddenly, the girl began to fall toward the water, but one of the officials saved her from disaster. Tetsuya questioned what mistake could have occurred at that moment. Then his phone rang, and Mizuki informed him that she had seen a soul explode from the girl. Upon hearing this, Tetsuya realized they were targeted again and offered to handle the situation himself. Miyuki went to check her competition device, but before she arrived, the official began to inspect the device and tried to plant a virus into it. Tetsuya suddenly entered, pulled the official onto the table, and demanded that he reveal his intentions. The man refused to respond. When Tetsuya tried to eliminate him, the elderly man entered the tent and inquired about the situation. Tetsuya informed him that the intruder had tried to contaminate Miyuki's device. The elderly man discovered that the device had a cyber worm, a powerful virus that causes the device to malfunction. After removing the intruder, Tetsuya told Miyuki that she could use the backup device since the original one was damaged. The elderly man expressed his desire to see Tetsuya again, but Tetsuya responded that he didn't have time for crawling. Miyuki returned to her team's tent and began apologizing. She said she was sorry for causing him emotional distress, as she shouldn't have been angry. However, Tetsuya thought her apology wasn't necessary and said that his anger was meant for her protection. Later that night, Miyuki noticed that she had made slight progress on the leaderboard. She asked Tetsuya if she could use the flying device. When the new round began, the girls soared towards the light. After a moment, Miyuki activated a new spell and flew ahead of them. Everyone wondered how she had gained that skill, but she began to cut through the lights and flew higher. By the end of the round, she had made a significant lead on the scoreboard. Tetsuya was extremely pleased with her success. At the dragon base, the gang discovered that their new plan had failed, and they thought the best option now was to destroy the competition entirely. They sent someone, and when he reached the arena, he tried to attack one of the competitors, but the competitor grabbed him and threw him out of the structure. However, the man managed to activate his spell and rolled on the ground. When the young man descended and asked about his identity, he discovered the competitor might be a robot. Another man appeared and asked if he preferred to be called Mr. Robot to take advantage of his attack. The man tried to strike the competitor, but he pushed him back with his spell and instructed his partner to do the same. At that point, they managed to pin him to the ground with electric needles, allowing their colleague, the agent above, to complete the mission. That night, in the arena, Miyuki activated her spell and began to turn off the lights, ending the time, and realized the other girls had done the same. She acquired the flying spell and began to cut the lights again. After a while, one of the girls began to run out of magic and had to land, while Miyuki continued her path toward victory. That night, at the hotel, the girls celebrated their victory, and Erika wondered if they would win the second target emblem. In the parking lot, the consultant transferred all the data about the dragon to Tetsuya. When he left, he told him he was going to hunt down the bodies. The agent entered the car and said he had finally located the gang and planned to send an agent to the Securities and Exchange Commission in honor of his birthday. Later that night, a strange man appeared and asked the leader to include Tetsuya in his clan since he was an outcast. He told him he had trained Tetsuya's mother and aunt when they were young and wanted to do the same with him. He also said that with the Yatsu family, Tetsuya would be so powerful they could even control the 10 major clans. Meanwhile, Tetsuya arrived in the city and started heading towards the informant. The mysterious men were wondering how to get rid of Tetsuya since he had become a thorn in their side. On the rooftop, Tetsuya awaited them. When he fired his weapon, one of the men immediately fainted. The others were puzzled about what was happening, and suddenly the power generator disappeared. They felt fear about what might come next. At that moment, the phone rang, and Tetsuya told them he was coming to take revenge. Their magic disappeared, and another power generator vanished. One of the men, fearing for his life, tried to hide. In one of the generators, it was discovered that the attacks were coming from the window. One of the men decided to take a picture of a man targeting a distant building. When he looked through the lens, he saw Tetsuya smiling, and before he could react, a bullet hit his eye. One of them ordered the use of power generators to attack Tetsuya, but they said it was impossible because they couldn't reach him directly. 2 more generators disappeared. Tetsuya spoke through the intercom and said he had come to give them swift funerals without booking. One of them tried to call for help, but Tetsuya informed him that he had cut off their service, and the man disappeared immediately. The blind man tried to escape but disappeared before reaching the door, leaving only one man remaining. He said he was withdrawing and would become a follower of Christ. Tetsuya responded that this was the favorite excuse of every sinner. He promised them that the gang would be expelled from Japan. But Tetsuya wasn't convinced and said that only their leader had the power to make the decision. The man said Tetsuya could negotiate with him. Tetsuya asked for the leader's name and discovered that he was Richard's son, a well-known figure in society. Tetsuya decided that he would be the bad protagonist for that day and eliminated another sad man. The man asked why Tetsuya was killing them. He told him that they hadn't hurt any students, but Tetsuya was determined to play the bad guy. He told him they had wronged him when they expelled his sister. He also said that the gang's attempt had triggered his emotions, leading him to come back and take revenge on them. The next day, Kudo and his team started a new round of the linked code and stunned their enemies with electricity, throwing them to the ground. An alarm was sounded, and they knew that Kudo's team had won their competition. Miyuki saw Kudo in a new round with Molise, and Kudo was defending his team with an indestructible shield, tossing enemies aside like children. With that, he secured his team's victory. Finally, Miyuki and her teammate received their medals. Kudo was extremely happy with his first-place finish. That night, in the hotel, Tetsuya saw Masaki with Miyuki and realized there might be a love story developing. When he appeared in front of him, he realized Masaki was Miyuki's brother, and he thought all his attempts had ended. But Tetsuya respected the symbol of brotherhood and asked Miyuki to dance with him. They headed to the ballroom. After a while, Kudo appeared and requested a private meeting outside the hotel. He asked Tetsuya to join one of the 10 major clans, as it was the only way to protect himself from the intentions of the clan leader. Tetsuya wasn't keen on switching clans. Kudo asked if marriage to Mayumi would change his mind, but Tetsuya told him it wasn't enough and confirmed he was too young to be a father. Kudo said that he couldn't overlook the defeat of the clan leader because the leaders were determined to have him join them. They would allow him to become the leader after weeks. At school, Miyuki wondered why Tetsuya was in the library. She thought he was watching adult videos, but he told her he was looking for the Philosopher's Stone, and explained that the stone had the ability to transform materials into magical components, allowing him to store magical sequences inside it. He then asked her the reason for her visit. She told him that the new council president wanted to meet him, so he agreed to go with her. In the private office, the teacher told Tetsuya that they were invited to a new competition and asked if he was ready to represent the school. He also mentioned that the last team member had arrived, and then he left. When Tetsuya returned home that night, he met Miyuki, and the situation was strange. He realized that the lady outside was his partner. The lady, whose name was Sai, said that she wanted to support him at headquarters and asked him to leave the school. However, Tetsuya told her that he couldn't abandon his sister. She tried to tell him there was someone else who could take care of her, but he said no one could be good enough for her and that he didn't mind remaining in his role as her personal guardian for the rest of his life. When she realized he was firm in his decision, She decided to reveal the Philosopher's Stone to him and told him that he had the ability to store magical sequences and asked if he could repeat them. Tetsuya agreed to analyze it immediately. After she left, he told Miyuki that he had been looking for the bad guys. Suddenly, an accident occurred, and 2 vehicles were completely destroyed. Some bad guys tried to finish them off, so Tetsuya began running toward them. When one of them threw a disruption grenade, Tetsuya raised his hand and quickly disarmed his weapon. The bad guys were stunned and they asked, "Who is this?" But he attacked them swiftly, breaking their bones. While he was checking the victims, a sniper opened fire on him, but Tetsuya quickly dodged. The bodies were transferred to the car and sped away. Using his internal senses, Tetsuya traced the bullet's path and discovered that the sniper was on a distant roof. Immediately, he appeared in front of him and fired an explosion that hit the sniper. When he returned home, Tetsuya revealed to Miyuki the effects and told her he had been assigned to repeat them. Although he acknowledged that it might be difficult, he was ready to try. He also told her that he could create magical robots to help them in wars and even in cleaning toilets. The following day, Tatsuya went to Ono and informed him about what had happened. However, he did not ask him to search for the culprit. Instead, he requested an investigation into the organization that had recently begun selling classified documents. At the same time, Tatsuya was discussing the hacking incident with Isori. During their conversation, Mei arrived accompanied by the new chairman of the disciplinary committee. The reason for their visit was to discuss the security measures for the research competition. The security in question was not limited to the duration of the competition itself. It also included personal protection for every member of the team, as well as the safeguarding of the research materials and equipment that would be used. This was because magic research relied on highly valuable materials that could easily become targets for various groups seeking to seize them. For that reason, it was decided that the security personnel would be selected from both the disciplinary committee and the activities supervision department. As for Kanon, she personally chose to take responsibility for protecting Isori. Meanwhile, Mei assigned both Hanzo and Kirihara to guard Suzune. When they asked Tatsuya whom he wished to have protecting him, he firmly stated that he had no need for any protection whatsoever. As he was leaving, he suddenly sensed someone watching him from a distance. He immediately informed Kanon and Kai about it. Realizing that they had discovered her presence, the spy quickly turned and fled. Kanon instantly chased after her. Just as she was about to catch her, the girl used a flash grenade that disoriented everyone for a brief moment. Afterward, she jumped onto a motorcycle and attempted to escape. Although the vehicle was immobilized by the magic Kai used, it was equipped with a special system that ultimately allowed it to get away. Elsewhere, inside the command center of the Great Asian Alliance in Japan, Colonel Chung Shangshin issued orders to target First High School. He also commanded that additional reinforcements be deployed to the area, and that complete protection be provided for the girl. To carry out the mission, Captain Lu Gong was assigned to lead the operation and oversee the attack on the school. Back at the school, Mizuki told Tatsuya that since the morning she had been feeling strange gazes, watching the school from afar, and the sensation was both unsettling and disturbing. Mikihiko also explained that he had detected a large number of spirits moving throughout the school since morning, as if someone were using Shikigami to monitor the area. However, he was unable to deal with them because that particular type of magic was completely different from the techniques he specialized in, and it did not belong to the traditional ancient Japanese magic he was familiar with. After classes ended, everyone decided to head to the cafe they usually visited. While on the way, some of them felt that someone was following them, but they chose to ignore it for the time being. After spending some time inside the cafe, Erika excused herself by saying that she was going to the restroom, while Leo immediately followed after her. Meanwhile, Mikihiko secretly began preparing a magic spell. However, Tatsuya, who had noticed everything from the very beginning, asked him not to overuse magic and expose themselves to people outside the cafe. Shortly afterward, Erika confronted the person who had been tailing them and forced him out of hiding. The moment he saw Erika and Leo preparing to attack him, he began shouting and calling for help. However, his voice could not be heard because they were inside a magic barrier that Mikihiko had already established beforehand. Since he did not wish to reveal his true identity, a direct confrontation immediately broke out between both sides. During the clash, the man revealed that his name was Jiro Marshall. He insisted that he was not their enemy and explained that he had been assigned to monitor talented magic students to ensure that advanced technology did not fall into the hands of the Eastern powers. Even so, he refused to openly reveal the organization that had sent him. The moment Erika and Leo Leo lowered their guard, he suddenly stood up, pointed a handgun at them, and ordered them not to move. He explained that magic engineers in America and other Western nations had become targets for numerous groups originating from the East, and that First High School had also become one of those targets. Afterward, he instructed them to warn the other students to remain cautious and pay close attention to everything happening around them, even while inside the school itself. He then left immediately. At the same time, Kyoko had already detected Jiro through the surveillance cameras. She had even managed to observe the confrontation between him, Erika, and Leo, despite the magic barrier Mikihiko had created. That was precisely why Tatsuya had warned Mikihiko not to overdo his use of magic. Since everyone involved in the incident was closely connected to Tatsuya, Kyoko erased all evidence and traces related to the confrontation. During the investigation, it became clear that Jiro was an American agent. After his identity had been exposed, he requested that his superiors send a replacement to continue the mission in his place. Jiro knew that the surveillance cameras had already revealed who he was, so he headed into a narrow alley in an attempt to disappear. However, there he was suddenly confronted by a terrifying figure. That person was Lu Gong, the man known as the Predatory Tiger. We then returned to First High School, where the research team conducted a test of a plasma system designed to regulate the temperature of the school grounds. The experiment achieved complete success without encountering any problems. As one of the members of the security team, Sayaka noticed suspicious behavior from a certain female student. That student was none other than the same girl who had previously spied on Tatsuya. The moment she realized that Sayaka had noticed her, she immediately began to run away. However, Sayaka continued pursuing her until the girl became exhausted and finally stopped running. Her name was Hirakawa Chiaki, and she was a first-year student. When Sayaka examined the device Chiaki had been carrying, she discovered that it was a cyber intrusion device. Chiaki explained that she had used it before, during a period when she had gone down the wrong path. At that point, Sayaka advised her to stay away from the people who had led her onto that path, emphasizing that they were doing nothing more than exploiting her for their own benefit. However, Chiaki merely smiled and told her that such a thing was completely normal for her. It was obvious that Sayaka's words had not affected her in the slightest. As a result, Sayaka decided to call Kirihara in order to stop her. Chiaki used a flash grenade before firing an arrow loaded with tear gas. In the end, she completely lost consciousness and was handed over to Asuka inside the school clinic. While returning, Erika and Leo found themselves in an argument with a member of the disciplinary committee named Sekimoto Isao. He was annoyed with them because they kept wandering around near the experiment site. However, Kanan quickly stepped in and resolved the dispute, explaining to Isao that Erika and Leo were volunteers serving as part of the security team for the research competition. After that, Kanan and Kai went to visit Chiaki. There, Kanan asked her why she had attempted to steal the research data. However, Chiaki explained that her goal had never been to steal the data in the first place. Rather, she intended to rewrite the program and sabotage the magic device that would be used during the presentation. She also confirmed that she knew perfectly well that Tatsuya was capable of repairing everything she damaged, but at the very least, she wanted to make him nervous and distracted. In fact, she did not even care if she was expelled from school. All she wanted was to see him suffer. As for the reason behind her intense hatred toward him, it was her belief that what happened to her sister, Hirakawa Koharu, had been his fault. She was convinced that Tatsuya had allowed Kobayakawa-senpai to face his fate until he fell, which caused her sister to suffer a psychological breakdown due to overwhelming guilt. At that point, Kai responded by stating that if Tatsuya was responsible for what had happened, then every member of the technical team, including himself, shared that responsibility as well, because none of them had noticed what was about to happen. But Chiaki raised her voice angrily and insisted that the only person who had known in advance that the incident would occur was Tatsuya. At that moment, Asuka intervened and stopped the discussion after realizing that Chiaki's mental state was growing worse, asking them to postpone the conversation until another time. Meanwhile, Erika brought Leo with her to the Shiba family residence. Erika understood that the crisis they were facing was far from simple and could very well result in casualties. From her perspective, Leo's ability as a guard was comparable to that of a first-class soldier, and he also possessed the talent to eventually become stronger than both Kirihara and Hanzo. However, despite that, he still lacked a decisive technique that would allow him to eliminate his opponents quickly. For that reason, she brought him to the Shiba family residence residence so that he could receive special training there. The person who would be training him was Zhu Junjin. Ironically, he was the very same individual who had been assisting the forces of the Great Asian Alliance, including Colonel Chen and Captain Lu Gong. During this time, the security team was undergoing intensive training. The training was not limited to physical combat without magic. It also included direct magic battles. As the leader of the security team assigned to the research competition, Jumonji personally supervised their training. At the end of the week, Tatsuya went to visit Professor Yakumo. Yakumo knew that Tatsuya possessed the Nano Magatama relic, so he advised him to return it to its rightful owners. Upon hearing that, Tatsuya was surprised to learn that the value and importance of the relic were far greater than he had imagined. Following that advice, he headed directly to the company. While on the way, he noticed that the entity following him was not a human being, but rather a shikigami in the form of a crow. Since Tatsuya did not wish to reveal his true abilities, he simply decided to move out of the crow's field of vision. Elsewhere, the company was suffering from an enormous cyber attack. Yet even at that point, no one knew the hacker's true objective. The moment he arrived, Tatsuya completely ignored the welcoming ceremony and instructed everyone to focus on their work instead of wasting time. Throughout this, the crow continued watching him from the top of the company building. However, Tatsuya eventually managed to disappear from its sight entirely. Because of that, the Great Asian Alliance assumed that Tatsuya had delivered the relic to the company. As a result, their objective shifted from monitoring him to stealing the relic from inside the company itself. Afterward, Chen spoke about Zhu Junjin, who wished to meet Chiaki. However, Chen was completely different from him. While Zhu Junjin treated his tools and subordinates with respect, Chen believed that anyone who lost their usefulness should be eliminated immediately. Because of this, he ordered Lu Gong to assassinate Chiaki before she could meet Zhu Junjin. The following day, after school ended, the field experiment was cancelled due to heavy rain. As a result, Tatsuya headed to the robotics laboratory to continue his work there and finish writing the bug removal program. Inside the laboratory was a security robot named Pixie. Tatsuya placed it into passive standby mode. While working, he gradually began to feel sleepy. A few moments later, he realized that sleeping gas had been released into the room. Pixie then presented him with a protective mask and informed him that there was a malfunction in the ventilation system. Tatsuya immediately ordered it to force the ventilation system back online. After it resumed operation, he switched Pixie to surveillance mode and instructed it to prepare an emergency distress request in case anything happened. Afterward, Tatsuya lay down as though he had completely fallen asleep. A short time later, Isao entered the laboratory. Once he confirmed that Tatsuya was asleep, he began connecting a cyber intrusion device. He claimed that he was merely creating a backup copy of the data. However, Tatsuya suddenly woke up. It was then revealed that he had been pretending to sleep from the very beginning. As for Isao, he was utterly shocked when he discovered that the sleeping gas had not affected Tatsuya at all. At that moment, Kanon entered the laboratory and delivered a powerful kick to Isao, demanding that he surrender. However, he refused to submit and attempted to fight back. Elsewhere, Zhu Junjin was on his way to visit Chiaki. As he walked, he spotted Lu Gong heading toward her room. He immediately realized that she was in danger and that the true objective was to eliminate her. As a result, he activated the alarm system without hesitation. During this time, the area was under the protection of Mari, accompanied by Shiba Naotsugu. The moment the alarm sounded, both of them rushed toward its source at maximum speed. Naotsugu was the first to arrive at the scene. There, he directly confronted Lu Gong, and a fierce battle immediately erupted between them. Lu Gong pressured him relentlessly until he was pinned against a wall. He then unleashed a punch containing tremendous rotational force. Naotsugu instantly realized that the battle was not going in his favor. Therefore, he jumped away and retreated from the area. However, his hand was injured while attempting to block that attack. He was extremely shocked by the fact that Lu Gong had managed to reach this location in the first place. Because of that, he quickly informed Mari of his opponent's true identity. As for Lu Gong, he eventually returned to headquarters after completing his mission. After that, Chen completely changed the priorities of the plan and issued orders to Lu Gong to eliminate Isao, who was being held inside the Hachioji detention center. At the same time, Zhu Junjin went to visit Chiaki. Chiaki was extremely surprised by how he had managed to enter that place, and he replied that he had used his own special technique. Afterward, he presented her with a rose, as though he were using some form of hypnosis or mental influence to make her forget everything related to him. Meanwhile, Tatsuya headed to the detention center to visit Isao, accompanied by both Mayumi and Mari. Tatsuya and Mayumi sat inside a separate observation room and watched as Watanabe entered alone to speak with Isao. Mari used a mind magic spell on him, and after that, he began revealing his true objectives. He explained that his original plan had been to obtain data from the presentation device first, then search through Tatsuya's personal belongings, specifically the relic he had been looking for. However, before he could finish his confession, a breach alarm suddenly sounded throughout the facility. Everyone quickly left the room and discovered that the intruder who had infiltrated the place was none other than Lu Gong himself. Lu Gong immediately moved toward them. Without hesitation, Mayumi bombarded him with a massive barrage of ice magic attacks. However, the attacks had absolutely no effect on him. It seemed that he had not expected to be attacked by a group of students, so he began taking the situation far more seriously. Suddenly, he charged forward at a terrifying speed, to the point that it seemed as though he had vanished from before their eyes. He passed Mari in a single instant and intended to eliminate Mayumi first, but what he did not know was that something unexpected was waiting for him ahead. Without warning, and without understanding what had happened, the right side of his abdomen split open and blood burst out violently. The attack had been carried out by Tatsuya using a mysterious technique that no one was able to perceive clearly. His movements immediately slowed down. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Mayumi launched another ice magic attack from behind. This time, he was unable to stop it. Thus, the battle ended with Lu Gong's defeat and collapse. Afterward, Chen met with Zhu. At first, he thanked him for all the assistance he had provided throughout the previous period, which had allowed him to continue carrying out his operations. He then explained that Lu Gong was an extremely important asset to them and requested his help in rescuing him. Zhu agreed and explained that he would make his move during Lu Gong's transfer to the prison designated for foreigners in Yokohama. In return, he requested that the Great Asian Alliance stay away from the city while the operation was being carried out. Chen understood that Zhu did not want these disturbances affecting the area he managed within China. However, he refused to agree to the request. He explained that the Alliance's primary target was the Kanto Magic Association branch, which was located very close to China. Not only that, but the magicians participating in the competition and their data were also valuable targets. At the same time, Suzune arrived with Hanzo to meet Chiaki. She spoke to her with complete honesty. She told her that what she was doing would never make Tatsuya pay attention to her. She added that Tatsuya was an extremely arrogant person who would not care no matter how much she screamed or cried, and he might not even notice her existence in the first place. After that, she continued speaking. She explained that during the midterm examinations, Tatsuya had achieved an exceptionally high score, and the gap between him and the second-place student had been as vast as the distance between heaven and earth. Because of that result, he had been ranked as the top candidate in the field of magic engineering. The second position had belonged to Chiaki herself, who had scored 92 points out of 100. It was a result that normally would have been enough to secure first place. However, Tatsuya's presence had changed everything. Because of that, Suzune assured her that she possessed the talent and potential needed to surpass him in the future. She also informed her that the school was prepared to support her in the field of magic engineering. She advised her not to continue carrying that anger inside her. Instead, she should transform those feelings into genuine motivation that would drive her to find a way to surpass Tatsuya. In the end, she invited her to attend the research competition the following day. Eventually, the long-awaited day of the competition arrived. Kyoko met with both Tatsuya and Miyuki while disguised as a technical staff member. She first informed them that the mobile suit project they had been working on had been completed successfully. Afterward, she spoke about the possibility of a serious incident occurring during the competition. She asked Tatsuya and Miyuki to assist her if that actually happened. She also handed Tatsuya a memory card containing additional important information. However, while they were talking, Kyoko received an urgent call. There she learned that Lu Gong had managed to escape. It was also revealed that the vehicle transporting him had been attacked on the way. At the research competition security headquarters, Hanzo reported the results of the investigation concerning Isao to Jumonji. It turned out that he had been the victim of a brainwashing operation carried out by an organization targeting the competition. Afterward, he informed him of another matter that had been concerning him since the previous week. He had noticed a large number of foreigners throughout the area. Kirihara supported this opinion as well, confirming that the overall atmosphere within the city felt strange and unnatural. As the leader of the security team assigned to the research competition, Jumonji immediately ordered all members to wear bulletproof vests. At the same time, First High School began presenting its research project. The presentation received tremendous praise and enthusiastic applause from the audience. After the presentation concluded, Tatsuya met with Keiichi. Keiichi praised the project and then declared that he would not lose to it in the competition. However, before Keiichi could begin his own presentation, a massive explosion suddenly occurred. It was revealed that the cause was an autonomous vehicle that had breached the site and crashed into the control building. Toshikazu immediately rushed toward the scene. According to the information he received, the vehicle had exploded immediately after the collision. After that, the enemy forces began moving. Within a short time, battles erupted throughout various parts of the area. It was not long before missiles were launched from a ship disguised as an ordinary civilian cargo vessel. At that point, Toshikazu contacted his father and informed him of what was happening. He requested that the Japanese defense forces be mobilized immediately. He also requested the deployment of his Ikazuchi Maru as well as Erika's Orochi. Inside the presentation hall, the sounds of explosions continued echoing without pause. A short while later, enemy forces stormed the hall itself. Keiichi attempted to attack them. However, he received a warning shot that forced him to stop. The attackers ordered everyone to place their magic devices on the ground. The security personnel had no choice but to comply. At that moment, Tatsuya received the same order. However, he did not obey. Instead, he began observing the attackers' positions and how they were stationed near the hall's exits. When he ignored the command, one of the attackers opened fire on him. But what happened next left the man completely shocked. He called Tatsuya a monster before throwing away his firearm and charging at him with a knife. This caused the other attackers to become confused and lose their concentration. The security forces immediately took advantage of that decisive moment. They launched a counterattack and succeeded in eliminating all of them. Thus, the threat inside the hall was completely neutralized. At the same time, Miyuki used magic to remove the blood from Tatsuya's clothes. Afterward, his friends gathered around him. He explained the dangerous situation that existed outside the hall. He intended to handle everything by himself. However, he knew perfectly well that Erika and the others would never allow him to go alone. As they were leaving, Keiichi Guki asked him about the technique he had used a short while earlier. He stated that he believed it was one of the secret techniques developed by Major William Sirius, the former commander of the American STARS unit. However, Tatsuya simply replied, "And what's the problem if I can use it?" He then continued walking as though nothing had happened. The truth was that the technique Tatsuya had used was not actually the one Keiichi Guki believed it to be. Meanwhile, the entire city was sinking into chaos. People were running toward evacuation zones. The situation everywhere was becoming increasingly unstable and disorderly. Inside the research exhibition hall, panic spread due to the continuous sounds of explosions and the violent tremors shaking the ground. At that point, Mayumi approached Azusa and asked her to use a calming magic spell to reassure the people present and ease their panic. At first, Azusa was nervous and uncertain whether she could do it. However, Mayumi encouraged her and told her to trust in herself. After the situation inside the hall calmed down somewhat, Mayumi stepped onto the stage in front of the audience. First, she introduced herself to everyone, then explained that the city was under a large-scale attack by an unknown organization, launching assaults from both the sea and the land at the same time. After that, she informed them that there were two possible routes to safety. The first was to head toward one of the shelters located near the train station through the underground tunnel. The second was to proceed to Mizuho Pier, where a rescue ship was scheduled to arrive and evacuate the civilians. She also emphasized that neither route would be completely safe and that they might encounter dangers during the evacuation. However, remaining inside the building was far more dangerous. At the same time, Tatsuya and his group arrived at one of the battle zones. Using her magic abilities, Miyuki froze the enemy forces in place according to the locations that Tatsuya had identified beforehand. Afterward, Tatsuya began eliminating them one after another with astonishing speed. Once all the enemies inside the building had been dealt with, Tatsuya informed the others that he could sense an even greater threat approaching. For that reason, he believed it would be better to observe the situation first and gather additional information before taking any further action. At that point, Shizuku suggested using the special room located inside the building, since it allowed access to more detailed information regarding the events unfolding throughout the city. She also explained that she had previously visited that location with her father and knew the access code. As a result, they successfully entered the special room. There, A detailed map appeared before them, displaying the locations of the attacks and the scale of the destruction spreading throughout different parts of the city. Based on that information, Tatsuya concluded that traveling by land routes would be the best option. The underground tunnel did not lead directly to the shelter, and it could easily become a perfect ambush point if the enemy was waiting inside. However, before leaving, Tatsuya requested that they return to the exhibition hall once again. He explained that he wanted to destroy the presentation devices there in order to prevent anyone from stealing the research data. When he returned, he found that Mayumi and the remaining students were still inside the hall. At the same time, Suzune had already begun deleting the presentation data from the systems to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. After that, Jumonji arrived and informed them that Azusa had sent the rest of the students into the underground tunnel. The moment Tatsuya heard that, he immediately considered the situation extremely dangerous. The tunnel was not a direct route, and there was a very high possibility that the enemy had prepared an ambush inside it. At that point, Jumonji ordered both Hanzo and Sawaki to hurry and catch up with Azusa and the other students. As for himself, together with Kiriya and Kai, they remained behind to verify the safety of the building and secure the area. After completing those tasks, they all returned to the special room. There, they received a communication from Azusa. Just as Tatsuya had predicted, the group had come under attack inside the tunnel. However, the number of attackers had been limited, and they were eliminated quickly before they could cause any real damage. At that moment, Tatsuya calmly raised his weapon toward a thick nearby wall. Through his special abilities, he had detected a truck heading directly toward the building. It was obvious that it was preparing to carry out a suicide attack. No one inside the room was able to understand exactly what Tatsuya was doing. A few moments later, Kyoko appeared wearing a complete military uniform. At the same time, Jumonji headed toward the main entrance of the building. However, he found nothing except traces left behind by a vehicle that had passed through the area moments earlier. Meanwhile, several missiles were launched from the sea toward the building. Jumonji prepared to intercept them using his magic weapon, but before he could do anything, someone else had already destroyed them. That person was Sanero. Jumonji immediately recognized that he belonged to the independent magic-equipped battalion 101. Afterward, Sanada guided Jumonji to the special room. There, something completely unexpected occurred. Major Kazama suddenly appeared before everyone. At that point, Kyoko informed Tatsuya that his status as a special lieutenant had been revoked or temporarily suspended. The moment Tatsuya heard that, he immediately stood up and gave a military salute to Major Kazama. Everyone present was shocked by the sight. Even Jumonji, who had only just entered the room, looked completely stunned by what he witnessed. After that, Kyoko began delivering her military report. She explained that the Japanese defense forces were engaged in direct combat with the enemy throughout various parts of the city. She also confirmed that 2 additional battalions were on their way to the area to support the operations. Furthermore, she reported that the Magic Association branch had been completely secured. Once the report was finished, Major Kazama issued his orders directly to Tatsuya. He instructed him to move out immediately and assist the Japanese defense forces in the ongoing battles. He also ordered everyone present to maintain complete secrecy regarding the status of the special lieutenant, declaring it to be a direct order from the Japanese Defense Forces. Before departing, Tatsuya requested that everyone follow the military's instructions and refrain from violating orders under any circumstances. As he was about to leave, Miyuki asked him to wait for a moment. Tatsuya immediately understood what she meant. Miyuki quietly approached him and gently kissed his forehead. At that moment, it felt as though she had released him from the chains that bound him as the brother responsible for her. Now, he was completely free. Meanwhile, another battle was taking place in the parking area. Masaki was there. Every bullet fired toward him was stopped by his magic barrier. He did not limit himself to defense alone. Instead, he began using psychokinesis to redirect the projectiles and destroy the enemy forces. The students were shocked by what they witnessed. Some of them were even disgusted by the intensity of the scene. After the battle ended, Keiichi Guki offered to move together with him. However, Masaki refused. He explained that he intended to head toward the Magic Association branch. He also pointed out that he fully understood that people had been shocked by what they had seen from him. Keiichi Guki attempted to accompany him, but Masaki refused once again. Instead, he asked him to take command of the students aboard the bus traveling through the underground tunnel. At the same time, the group inside the tunnel reached the exit leading to the shelter. However, the area suddenly began to collapse. Fortunately, Suzura managed to stabilize the collapse with magic before it turned into a disaster. As for the group traveling along the surface route, they continued moving under the protection of the Japanese defense forces. Before reaching the station, 2 combat robots appeared before them. However, Miyuki instantly froze both of them before they could launch any attack. Afterward, everyone arrived at the entrance plaza of the station. There, they discovered that the entire area had suffered extensive destruction and severe structural collapses. Using the spirits, Mikihiko confirmed that the group inside the tunnel had successfully reached the shelter safely. The problem, however, was that the path leading to the shelter had become completely blocked. As a result, the group traveling by land could no longer reach it. At that point, Mayumi decided to call for a helicopter belonging to her family. Shizuku did the same. While waiting for support to arrive, Mayumi decided to assist with the evacuation of civilians. During this time, Toshikazu and Inagaki arrived at the location. They instructed the police to take charge of the evacuation operations. They also handed Erika her new Orochi sword. Elsewhere, a report reached the enemy command center stating that communication had been lost with all forces operating around the international conference area, as well as the forces stationed near the shelter. The commander immediately ordered all remaining war machines to be deployed. At the same time, Tatsuya was traveling in a combat vehicle developed by the division to which he belonged. During the journey, he detected several enemy drones. Strangely enough, they began destroying themselves one after another without any clear explanation. At the station, the forces split into 2 groups in order to secure the roads and entrances. In the area where Miyuki and the others were stationed, Miyuki sensed enemy forces approaching. As for the 2 robots that had appeared earlier, they remained completely frozen by her magic. After that, Tatsuya arrived and met Yanagi. The moment Yanagi saw him, he noticed that Tatsuya possessed a device called Cancer Cyber. He explained that the device served as the core component of the enemy's war robots. In fact, every one of those machines contained a human brain implanted specifically for that purpose. At the entrance plaza, the support helicopters finally arrived. However, an enormous swarm of insects suddenly appeared and began attacking the helicopters, clinging to them in a terrifying manner. Shizuku attempted to eliminate them using magic. However, her efforts were not enough to wipe them out. She explained that she suspected the insects were a form of chemical weapon. At that very moment, Tatsuya fired a single shot. Instantly, every insect vanished from the sky at once. Everyone was astonished by the sight. They became completely certain that the person before them could be none other than Tatsuya, even if he was disguising himself under a different appearance. After that, Tatsuya and his group continued securing the area until all civilians had boarded the helicopters and departed safely. While submitting a report regarding the situation, he discovered someone attempting to launch an anti-tank missile from a distant location. Meanwhile, another helicopter was heading toward Miyuki's position and the rest of the group. In a different area, Mari was responsible for security. Everyone believed the location was completely safe. However, what nobody noticed was that additional enemy forces had secretly arrived in the area. Suddenly, Miyuki descended directly in front of them. In a single instant, she froze every one of them without exception. Then she called out to her brother. Tatsuya immediately arrived at the scene. He used restoration magic on Kirihara and Kai, both of whom were in an extremely critical condition. At the same time, Miyuki held tightly onto him. Within only a few seconds, both of them had completely returned to normal. It was as if they had never suffered any injuries at all. Even their clothes were fully restored. This was despite the fact that Kirihara's injuries had actually been extremely severe. As for Kirihara and Kai, they remained in complete shock, unable to comprehend what had happened to them. At that point, Tatsuya calmly said to Miyuki, "Excellent work." He then departed once again to continue his mission. At the same time, Yanagi and his forces launched a counterattack against the enemy brigade. At first, they were placed under tremendous pressure. Some soldiers were even struck by enemy gunfire, causing the enemy to believe that victory was already within reach. However, everything changed the moment Tatsuya arrived on the battlefield. He was not merely eliminating enemy forces and destroying their war machines, he was also healing wounded soldiers in the middle of combat. The enemy forces were utterly shocked by the sight. They were facing someone who used magic on the battlefield in a manner that surpassed everything they knew, especially because they had already heard stories about his achievements during the Battle of Okinawa. For that reason, they gave him the title Mahasvara. the demon of Okinawa. At the enemy command center, a report arrived from the last unit whose communications had been lost before its destruction. Before disappearing, that unit had mentioned that very name. The moment the commander heard the name Mahesvara, he was consumed by rage. At the same time, inside the helicopter, Kirihara was still unable to believe what he had witnessed. He said that it felt as though everything that had happened was nothing more than a dream or an illusion, but the truth was far removed from that. At that point, Mari asked Miyuki about the ability Tatsuya had used. She wondered whether it was a type of healing magic. However, Miyuki immediately denied that. She explained that what he had used was not healing magic, but restoration magic. Then she explained it in simple terms. Her brother was capable of restoring any injured person to the exact condition they had been in 24 hours earlier, and he could accomplish it in a single instant. Nor was this ability limited to humans alone. Even inanimate objects could be restored in the same way. However, that power came at a tremendous cost. It severely limited his ability to use most other forms of magic. At that point, Kanon expressed great admiration for such an ability. She stated that it was capable of saving an enormous number of lives. Then she wondered why Tatsuya would choose to hide such an incredible power. However, another question was raised at that moment. Were they truly certain that this magic had no side effects? Miyuki then explained that the truth was far more complicated than they imagined. In order to restore something to its previous state, Tatsuya first had to read all of its information completely. That included every bit of pain and suffering experienced by the target. She used what happened when he treated Isori as an example. In only a fraction of a second, Tatsuya had read all of Isori's information. During that brief moment, his mind received an amount of pain and suffering equal to 150 times what Isori himself had experienced. She confirmed that this was the true price Tatsuya paid whenever he used that ability. At that point, the only thing the others could ask was one question. Was she absolutely certain about that? Meanwhile, Chen was leading his forces toward the headquarters of the Magic Association. Captain Lu Gong was accompanying him. The moment they arrived, Lu Gong stormed into the building through the front entrance, attacking everything that stood in his way. At the same time, Miyuki and the others arrived at the Magic Association headquarters from above. Mayumi, Erika, Leo, and Mari quickly descended to confront Lu Gong. The moment Mari saw him, she immediately realized that he had come specifically for her. It was obvious that he wanted revenge. Suddenly, he charged toward her at incredible speed. However, Erika and Leo stepped in front of him and blocked his path. Mari used nitrogen magic in an attempt to stop him, but it was not enough. Lu Gong managed to deliver a powerful kick to her. After that, Mayumi used ice magic. When Lu Gong attempted to shatter it, the ice transformed into gas and spread into his mouth. As a result, he became unable to breathe. In the end, he lost consciousness and collapsed to the ground. At the same time, Chen successfully infiltrated the building. He reached an extremely cold room. However, Miyuki suddenly appeared before him. The anger on her face was unmistakable because of everything he had caused for her and her brother. Chen was greatly surprised. He asked how she had managed to locate him. He had believed that no one was capable of tracking him. Miyuki informed him that she had found his location with the help of Mikihiko and Mizuki. Then she immediately froze him without giving him any opportunity to resist. Outside, the enemy forces were attempting to retreat toward the harbor. However, Tatsuya and the others succeeded in eliminating them completely. As for the enemy commander aboard the ship, he realized that continuing the battle was no longer possible. Therefore, he ordered a full retreat. Yanagi attempted to pursue them. However, Kyoko stopped him. She explained that the vessel was carrying extremely dangerous fuel. Destroying it at that location could contaminate the entire sea. At the same time, Battalion 101 gathered atop the Magic Association Tower. They confirmed that several minor clashes were still ongoing. However, those engagements would be over before nightfall. They also reported that the enemy's mothership was moving south of Saga Minata. It had been confirmed that the vessel could be destroyed safely without causing an environmental disaster. At that point, Kazama ordered Sanada to prepare the strategic class weapon, Ziegator. It was the same weapon that had previously been used during the Battle of Okinawa. After it was prepared, it was handed over to Tatsuya. Despite the tremendous distance separating him from the target, Tatsuya was able to pinpoint the ship's location with astonishing precision. Meanwhile, aboard the vessel, the enemy personnel remained completely at ease. They believed that the Japanese defense forces would never dare attack them because of the potential environmental risks. Their commander even vowed to return later and launch another offensive to compensate for their losses. During this time, Kyoko received another report. It stated that the forces of the Great Asian Alliance had gathered at Zhenhai Port. Because of that, Tatsuya and the others immediately moved toward that location. At the same time, Miyuki received a call from the head of the Yotsuba clan, Maya Yotsuba. She requested that both Miyuki and Tatsuya come to the clan's main headquarters. Miyuki replied that she would deliver the message to him as soon as he returned. After that, Tatsuya arrived at a new location. There, he activated the third eye technique. Through that technique, he unleashed an overwhelming attack that completely erased the entire fleet of the Great Asian Alliance. After successfully completing all of his missions, he finally returned home. There, waiting to welcome him, was the person closest to him, his sister, Miyuki. And here, the first season of the story comes to an end, my dear friends. We hope you enjoyed it and had fun watching. If you would like to see season 2, let me know in the comments. And before you close the video, don't forget to leave a like to support us, subscribe to follow more episodes, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any new anime on the channel. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you again in future episodes. Goodbye.